Would I be the asshole if I point out that my husband took food cooked for the family instead of food that he'd prepared for himself? My husband has been on a very regimented, very expensive diet program for just under a year now. Very low carb, stresses lean protein. He's been preparing meals that fit his diet, which for the most part, no one else eats. For example, he makes a soup nearly every week, which contains an ingredient which is disagreeable to me, so I avoid it. He knows what this ingredient does to my GI system and continues to make buckets of it. I take that to mean that it's not really for everyone else, at least not for me. Our two 20-something kids still live at home and will occasionally eat what he has prepared, but not that often. If he makes chicken breasts, he sautés them, and they're typically so heavily seasoned that no one else will touch them. He buys Power Greens, a special yogurt, and special cottage cheese, all of which occupy space in the fridge. He's never said no one can touch his food, but has acted aggravated when he's out of something that the kids decided tastes good. For Mother's Day, my son and I made a meal together. Originally, we were going to grill steaks, then decided to grill steaks and chicken breasts, thinking this would leave leftovers for us to work with for the rest of the week. There were 4 beautifully seasoned, perfectly grilled chicken breasts in the fridge when I left for work this morning. On the way home, I had decided to use 2 of them to make fettuccine alfredo with chicken for the kids and I, knowing husband would likely not eat it. It's become the norm for husband to decline whatever I make and eat one of his own meals, especially if what I'm making contains bread or pasta. I figured he could eat one of the other grilled chicken breasts or one of the other prepped meals in the fridge. Soup, turkey burger meatballs, seasoned chicken breasts, etc. The fridge is full. When I got home, I couldn't find the chicken breasts in the fridge or freezer. I sent a group text asking if anyone has seen them. My husband replied that he had taken them to work with him, all 4. My reply was just the word boo. He replied, sorry. I will probably let it go there because I already kind of feel like a jerk. At the same time though, the fridge is literally a crowded mess full of food that he's prepared for himself for his special diet. Why take something everyone can eat? Would I be the asshole if I asked him to check before using food intended for family meals? On one hand, it feels exclusionary and petty, but on the other hand, I'm left eating the leftover fruit tray and my quarter of leftover steak on a night when I got out of work early enough to actually cook a meal. Or I guess I could just make fettuccine with no chicken. In the comments, these are the replies from OP. Everyone had steaks and chicken for dinner on Sunday, including my husband. These chicken breasts were leftovers from that meal. He says he likes the spices he uses. I just don't. But then he raves about my cooking but never tries to replicate it. It's just that it's food, you know? We live in a nice house, have nice things, no one's starving. It's such a first world problem that it makes me feel icky even thinking about it. There are so many other big problems in the world. I did ask him when he came home, just to verify that my son hadn't had a midnight snack, how many were in the bag, and he said 4. I left them at work. I didn't eat them all today. I can go back and get them if you want me to. He also commented on the fridge being jam-packed and that there's plenty of food to choose from. My response was that I can't really make chicken Alfredo with the spicy ones. He joked that, sure you can. Might even be your best chicken Alfredo yet. We celebrated Mother's Day all weekend. Friday night, I came home to a lovely meal prepared by my son and his girlfriend. Saturday, the whole family went out together. I received gifts from both children and my husband. I don't feel neglected. At all. On Sunday, my son and I cooked together because it's our thing. We both love to grill, and the weather was perfect for grilling. Normally we have Sunday family dinner, and it's usually my son and I who do the majority of the cooking. Our daughter is house-sitting and works part-time at a hospital, so she joined us for dinner out and last night, but otherwise hasn't been around much this week. We invited a young single mother and her daughter for Sunday family dinner since she's relatively new to the area and far from her own mum. We've been married a long time and usually communicate pretty well. This is one of those situations that bothered me, and then it bugged me that I was bothered, if that makes sense. Like I said, it's just food, and no one in the house is going hungry. I experienced food insecurity as a child, so this feels petty and bratty because it's so far removed from needing to save portions to be able to eat every day, needing to make sure everyone had food every day. I don't know, I'm already over it. Thank you all for your kind words and support. To me, this is just another one of those situations where it's not about the Iranian yogurt, you know? This is about thoughtfulness. He had a fridge full of other food, yet he chose to take your food. Like the situation as it stands before this naturally was going to create friction. Yes, it's first world problems, but that doesn't discount your feelings. If you're having to constantly navigate his rules and preferences, maybe he should have a bit more thoughtfulness moving freely through everyone else's space. It doesn't sound like he took your feelings into consideration for this one. Asking him to check before using food that you've planned for the family isn't petty. Yes, it sounds petty when you put it out there like that. That's fine. I don't view it that way. This is all about respect and communication. You're not trying to control him. You're not trying to stop him from doing things. If he wanted to take it, he could always ask beforehand. Because, why didn't he take his own food? What was wrong with everything else he had prepared in the fridge that he needed yours? A calm, matter-of-fact talk about what is shared versus what is meal prep could probably save you guys from irritations in the future and having to deal with this once again. Small bananas, but bananas nonetheless. And now, onto the update. So I replied to several comments, but I keep seeing the same questions and comments. He did not eat all 4. He grabbed a Ziploc bag with 4 chicken breasts on Monday morning. He ate one for lunch. He left the other 3 in the fridge at work. We did celebrate Mother's Day pretty much all weekend. Everyone bought me gifts, the adults, children, and my husband. The reason that my son and I cooked on Mother's Day is because 1, we wanted to, and 2, I had invited a young mum to join us because she's in our city away from all her family for the holiday, and 3, we have Sunday family dinner every Sunday, and my son and I both enjoy cooking and often do it together. He offered to go get the rest last night. Admittedly, a half-assed offer. I will ask him to bring them home with him today. We've had a lot of disagreements over the course of 35 years. I'm not afraid of him. It felt petty to me because there is other food I could prepare. I'd just been looking forward to this particular dish. One Redditor got it absolutely right. He grabbed a bag of protein. It's possible that he even originally thought that they were the chicken breasts that he had prepped until he got to work. I didn't ask about that. Definitely thoughtless, maybe inconsiderate, but I don't believe that it was malicious. Also, to be clear, he's never complained about the kids or I eating any of his special foods, only acted aggravated when something was gone completely that he thought he still had more of. Much like this situation in reverse, our daughter likes his yogurt and cottage cheese. Our son will sometimes eat the protein. I did clean and rearrange the fridge so all of his stuff is on one shelf so it's easier for him to find. Thanks for reading and responding. And now, onto the final update. He brought home 2 of the chicken breasts. He then sent a text to the kids, warning them not to eat them as they are for dinner. As one person wrote, "If this is the worst thing going on, then I've got it pretty good." And you're right, I do. Thanks for all the replies and humor. In the comments, Houndstooth Reader says, "Yeah, it's small in the grand scheme of things. Still, when you think you've got the ingredients for dinner and then realize someone took all of a necessary ingredient, it's frustrating. Now you have to figure out something else for dinner. Also, it's pretty selfish to take all of the leftovers from a family meal and store them in your work fridge, leaving none for the family, including the person who prepared the food. I think it's the fact that he took all 4 chicken breasts that gets me. Why do that if he was only going to eat 1? He doesn't need to store them in his work fridge when, even if he thought they were his, he could have taken the 1 chicken breast to work and then taken another one the next day, and so on. It seems so weird to me. Unless my fridge at home suddenly broke, I wouldn't want to store my food in the work fridge since 1, it could go missing, and 2, If I decided that I suddenly wanted that food when I was home, I couldn't have it. It does feel more like someone making a point. Like it aggravates him when his family eats his food, so now he has taken theirs. I've maybe been on my own too long, but I'm super glad that I don't have to deal with someone who isn't very thoughtful regarding things like this. I'm glad that OP was able to work it out, and it was resolved and she seems happy, but that man is either obtuse or thoughtless regarding others and food. I guess you could take it many ways, because we aren't inside his head and we don't have the real reason as to why he did it, and if pressed on it, I doubt he would give you the truth. Because if you're being a petty asshole, how often are you going to admit that you were doing it out of spite? Let's be real. I don't think he was being malicious personally. I do think that he was just being thoughtless. And again, when he takes up so much real estate in the fridge, it's kind of annoying to be reminded that he has all this food, yet he chose to take mine. I know that this is just a back and forth shitfest because obviously the kids are also taking his food. So the kids know how it feels, he knows how it feels now. Is everyone equal? Can we stop the bullshit? Whatever, I'm ranting. I hope you guys enjoy my thoughts on this. I'm glad I live alone so that only I have myself to blame if something goes missing. Thanks for the story and thanks for the update, OP. Our next post is by user Unusual Insect, titled, "My brother-in-law, 34 male, invited me, 27 female, and my husband, 29 male, to an orgy. This happened yesterday. We went to my in-laws' house to celebrate my father-in-law's birthday. The entire family was there, including my brother-in-law and his wife. Now, everyone knows that they're in an open marriage and that they're part of a swingers club. They are very open about that. I never had an issue with that, and neither my husband. But we never had any interest in this sort of thing at all. So imagine my surprise when my brother-in-law, after making some small talk, told me that he was organizing a small orgy with a couple of friends and that they needed 2 more people. Oh God, no, I can't. Yuck. And what do you know? Me and his brother were the perfect couple for it. I never in my life felt so uncomfortable as I did in that moment. I thought that maybe he was joking, but he was completely serious. I told him that no, we were not interested. But he just said to keep an open mind and that I should talk to my husband before giving an answer. After that, I just avoided both him and his wife, and to be honest, I didn't enjoy much of the celebration. I just kept thinking about what had happened. I don't think anyone heard it because there was a lot of noise, and I was just making my way back to the living room when he showed up. There wasn't any alcohol around the house, since my father-in-law has had issues with it in the past, so I couldn't even blame the situation on my brother-in-law being drunk. I still haven't told my husband about it because I don't even know if I should. They both barely have a relationship due to some conflicts in the past, and I said very clearly that we weren't interested. So that should be enough, right? In the comments, Roseface asks, "Why wouldn't you tell your husband?" OP says, "I don't want to create another fight between him and his brother, especially after 3 years of peace." Yeah. Wow. Tip of the hat to you for keeping it cool amidst a bucket of crazy. However, despite being insanely uncomfortable, it seems like you do need to discuss this with your husband. Not to reconsider your answer in the slightest, but your husband should be aware that this happened. After all, your brother-in-law's next conversation with him might well be, "So, given it any further thought?" Or what? Or, the orgy. And then it goes downhill from there. Letting him be blindsided on that is no bueno. Also, there's also that matter that this is kind of an unwanted sexual advance on the both of you. God damn, this is weird. OP replies, I didn't think about it before since they're so distant, but since he's comfortable in proposing something like that, I don't think he's caring a lot. You know what, OP? Yeah, tell your husband. Don't do it to stir up drama, of course, but I think you keeping this from him will cause a bigger mess later when his brother brings it up. Probably to him. Of course, it's normal to shut this down right away, but this is a boundary issue that directly involves the both of you, so you do need to let your husband know that this question is coming his way potentially, and then come together, no pun intended. on shutting this shit down and being like, absolutely not, this is crazy. But yeah, like when you say it to him, you gotta frame it as like, hey, I just want you to know what he said to me so that we're on the same page, not your brother's open marriage disgusts me and his proposition was freaky in nature. Don't say that. You don't want it to be an attack. You want it to be honest and you want it to be a united front. You don't want to start conflict between you guys. That would not be the solution to this one. I think your husband deserves to know, and you deserve to not be carrying this burden alone. And now, onto the update. So, I decided to give an update since we've finally reached the end of the mess from the first post. I told my husband shortly after I posted the story here because I was feeling very anxious, and he was going to pick up on that anyway. I don't think I have to say my husband was livid. I never saw him like that before. After a lot of talking, I ended up learning a lot about the relationship between him and brother-in-law. To keep things short, brother-in-law is a huge asshole who has ruined relationships for my husband in the past. The only reason he didn't ruin ours was because my husband has put a lot of distance between himself and his own family. His family, by the way, always chalked it all up to sibling rivalry and never did anything to help, so I don't blame him. So this is what happened after. My husband called brother-in-law and asked him not to contact us anymore. He only wanted him to apologize to me for dragging me into this. Brother-in-law denied his request, saying that it was just a joke and that I should be able to take one like a grown-up. He hung up on us, and that was that for a few days, until we received a call from my mother-in-law who was very angry. Brother-in-law had told her and my father-in-law what had happened, and that he was very upset that he couldn't even make jokes without my husband making a big deal out of it. So mother-in-law was calling to say that we and my brother-in-law's family weren't going to be invited to family gatherings anymore until everything was solved. I told my husband about the call, and he was surprisingly calm this time around, saying that it was the usual behavior and that if I wanted to, he would make an effort, but he didn't care very much. At this point, I was angry myself because I never saw this behavior in his family before, and it was extremely frustrating. I told him not to bother and that it would be up to him to decide. We kept mostly to ourselves since nobody reached out to us either. Until Monday, when my father-in-law called us to say that brother-in-law was invited to spend Christmas with the family because his wife was pregnant. He only wanted to make sure that we knew this because he didn't want us showing up to ruin everyone's good time. Me and my husband ended up laughing about it later because it was so absurd. But I noticed that it's taken a toll on my husband's mood, and I'm debating suggesting therapy for him because I feel like there's a lot that he doesn't feel comfortable telling me. We're going to spend Christmas with my parents, and I hope my husband will be able to tune out this entire situation and have a good time. Edit 1. I didn't expect this to get the attention that it did. I've been reading the comments, and I want to say thank you to everyone who shared resources to help us moving forward. A lot of people have also been telling their own stories, and I can't answer them all, but know that I read it and your advice is being heard. This has helped me to get some perspective, as I cannot share what happened with my close friends. My husband is aware of this post, and he'll read it in his own time. Right now, we will be focusing on the holidays, and he would rather deal with it once the celebrations are over. Thank you once again to everyone. In the comments, Cute Physics Guy says, "Sounds like you are both best off separating yourselves from his family. What the hell kind of mum enables sex jokes to her daughter-in-law from her other son? I am no contact with my sister and very low contact with my dad over their jokes and other issues that could be resolved with a simple apology." I don't know what the right answer is for your husband. If he wants to do therapy, then by all means. But for me, there's no level of therapy that will give me a decent family. So I've long detached myself and moved on. OP replies, "Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm still weirded out after going through it because I could never do that sort of stuff to a family member and be so unapologetic about it. I'm sorry to hear about your experience. I hope you found your own peace and comfort with people that you enjoy. Your husband should take his parents' calls. It shouldn't go through you. And OP says, oh, I didn't take any calls directed to him. Mother-in-law called me instead of calling my husband. It sounded a lot like, I did my part, now do yours. Father-in-law called my husband. Therapy might help. Hugs, kisses, affection, and intimacy may be all he really needs. The real shame is that it seems that brother-in-law has reproduced. That's crazy. Oh my god. That's wild. OP replies, oh, definitely. I started pushing for dates more often, and now he is the one that suggests it. He also was talking about a trip to a place that we've been dying to go. The therapy would be more if he wants a place to vent in case he doesn't feel comfortable telling me yet. He doesn't speak a lot about his past, especially family-wise. I always found it odd, but now I might understand why. 0% chance it was a joke. Right? If she had said yes, he would not have said, haha, just kidding. I'd also ask mother-in-law and father-in-law when they're going to come to the orgy. If it's okay, then it's okay for everyone. One big happy family orgy. Sure, mother-in-law, inviting random family members to join you in an orgy is a totally normal and run-of-the-mill joke that people do all the time. I'm very impressed that the brother-in-law was comfortable enough to even tell his mother that he made a sex joke to his own brother. Makes me wonder if he told them a different version of the joke. I really hope that he just told them a different version of the joke and that she didn't hear what actually happened and was in agreement with it. Because if so, oh my god. Yeah, no, maybe it's time to put some boundaries up, to put some barriers between you and those people, because they're like, haha, it was totally normal of him to invite you to an orgy. That's a very cool and humane thing to do. We should encourage this because we have no brain. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, OP. I didn't know that people operated in this capacity and were so comfortable propositioning their own family members like this. Because from my experience living in this life, I haven't actually heard of anyone propositioning their brother and the brother's wife to be like, hey guys, we should be swingers, much less you should come and join an orgy that I am setting up. That is cartoon fantasy land levels of not okay. Let 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned with your open marriage and your orgy parties that you want to do, but I think it is unacceptable and it crosses a major line. And I hope that's not a controversial thing to say. I really don't think it would be. To say inviting family members to an orgy is a gigantic line to cross and is never acceptable. Please God tell me that everyone is in agreement that that's not an acceptable thing to do. Like actual freak energy from brother-in-law there. I would be horrendously upset and put gigantic amounts of distance between me and that scumbag for doing that. Thanks for the story. Thanks for the update, OP. What a freak. Our next post is by user Conception Drama, and it's titled, My 33 female, husband 40 male, is considering conceiving a child with his ex. I'll preface with the fact that therapy is an absolute given already, so I will be seeking that out. But in the meantime, I need some advice to just process what to even say to a therapist when the time comes. Okay, so the title needs explanation because it's a complicated and nuanced emotional situation. Apologies in advance for the rambling. I'm still trying to make sense of the entire situation while grieving and just trying to get the pertinent details out for advice. My husband and I have been happily married for 3 years now. My husband had a son from a previous relationship before we got together. I've been in my stepson's life since he was 2 years old. He turned 6 years old this year, and got along very well. My stepson's bio mum, BM, and I have never been friends in any capacity, but have always been cordial, respectful on the rare times we interacted, and never had any issue with one another. My husband and bio mum are similarly cordial and respectful and communicative around their son's needs, but not really friends beyond that. We pretty much adhered to a parallel parenting style, and it worked fine. 4 weeks ago, my stepson tragically and very suddenly died from an infection. It has just been absolutely devastating for everyone. Bio mum is especially just wrecked. Her son was literally her entire life and purpose as a stay-at-home single mom. My grief cannot compare to the level that I know that she feels, and I do have compassion for that. My husband is, of course, also exceptionally distraught. I've been doing my best to be understanding in how they both need to grieve as parents. 2 days ago, my husband said that he had something that he needed to discuss with me. He explained that BioMom approached him with a request. She asked my husband to be her sperm donor for an IUI/IVF, as she desperately wants to be a mom again and wants to conceive a child with the same partner that her son had. He basically made it clear that it's something he is willing, even wanting to do, but knows that he needs to understand how I feel about it. Well, I don't know exactly how to communicate what I feel about it at this point, but the feelings are not good ones. I told him that I needed some time to process this. My husband and I have been trying to have a child of our own for the past few months, so this is even more personally difficult for me to take in. I think I already know that I am not okay with my husband having another child with his ex, but I'm thinking of suggesting that we offer her financial support to seek out alternative fertility options that do not involve my husband's sperm. And, quite honestly, do not involve 18 years of co-parenting. I'm actually not even sure what BioMom and my husband are thinking regarding that in this scenario. Additionally, BioMom is 41 years old, so there's a high probability that this whole situation would be a lot of money and time spent without any results. Overall, I think I'm just in shock here. I feel disrespected and angry, but I also understand that it's not really just about me here, and that both of them are struggling to cope with this unimaginable grief. I would just appreciate some level of advice from people outside this situation, specifically advice on how I should convey that I am not on board with this without making it a point of contention. In the comments, yeah, this is a big nah. There are so many emotions here, and during times of grief, they might not be thinking rationally. But having another child to replace one that you lost is not the answer here. I think the first step is couples counseling with your husband, where you state that you aren't comfortable with him fathering a child with another woman while you are undergoing your own journey together. Best leave the bit about age/viability out, and that you think that it would impact your marriage. Then the intricacies of co-parenting said child would also make you uncomfortable. It's terrible that you're all going through this, and I hope that you can heal in a healthy way. BioMom is trying to have another son just 4 weeks after her son died? That sounds like she's simply trying to bury her grief by replacing her dead son. This is not healthy, and your husband cannot enable her. If he's going to do anything for her, it should be to help her find grief counseling. Back up to the post, there's an edit. Thank you so much already for the responses. I feel like this is happening to someone else. It is such a shocking and emotional wave after wave. Very difficult to process and think totally rationally. I honestly consider understanding and compassion to be personal strengths of mine, so I appreciate the replies acknowledging that I am not betraying that by being a firm no on facilitating this situation. I would just add that I'm fortunate to be financially stable independently, and my husband and I had already set aside a fairly significant sum specifically for child support. So even had this specific scenario not arisen, I feel obligated to offer some, if not all of that, to BioMom, since it was always intended to go to her and her son. Anyway, I will keep reading through the replies. Thank you again. And at this point, plan to speak with my husband this evening about feeling it is inappropriate to consider this now, and dealing with his grief first and foremost with professional help. I do think you need to hit the brakes on this one, because yeah, this is coming from grief. This is not coming from a place of logic. This is not a grounded family decision being made. This is her trying to make up for what she feels she has lost, and she wants to gain control in some way. You having a boundary on this one is completely understandable. Like, this is an insane request, and it almost feels evil to say no to this because it kind of feels like you're taking her control away. You're saying no to someone that is suffering when you could easily enable happiness. You kind of feel selfish for doing that, but at the same time, you give it another thought and you're like, this is fucked up. This is really messed up. I should not be getting involved in this. You gotta cut through the noise with your husband, man. You gotta tell him to just hit the brakes. Let's chill out for a bit. Let's give this some time to get some emotional clarity. We can all understand like how deep his grief is right now, but this request from her and his serious consideration of it is a territory that can be marriage-breaking, believe it or not. This could end your future together and your ability to heal together. Like, I don't think I'd be cool with blending the line between, like, support and parenthood again with that ex. Let's all make some time before committing to an irreversible choice. How does that sound? That way, you're not rejecting compassion, you're not being heartless towards this woman and towards your husband, but you need to protect your shared life and your marriage. That is what is of utmost importance to both of you. He also needs to recognize that. And now, onto the first update. Thank you again to the blunt takes on my situation. Days are still mostly a blur right now, and writing out my issue and reading through the straightforward advice did help ground me a bit. I went ahead and took action on something I could control. Reached out to my therapist and got a reference for a couples counselor who was specifically experienced in dealing with grief around child loss. I was thankfully able to get us fit in for an appointment this week. After I returned home from work last night, my husband came into our room and immediately started sobbing and apologizing. He had spoken with his dad that day and told him what Biomom had proposed. My father-in-law, bless him, had apparently really went off on the delusion of it. My husband and I had a long into the early morning talk about it, and he was able to recognize and explain that what seemed like interest in Biomom's request was misplaced desires. He explained that he's been so focused and excited about the prospect of planning a child with me for the last 4 months and envisioning life as a father of 2, and it felt confusing to still be feeling that while dealing with the devastation of losing his son. Biomom's ask was a total shock for him too, and when you're face to face with someone grieving so deeply, asking for your help/a solution, however absurd it is, it's not always as easy to think logically. He was receptive and seemed relieved to have the therapy appointment, so I'm hopeful that that will be a start in unpacking these complicated and conflicting feelings. We agreed that he should ultimately end all contact with Biomom, but still consider what sort of short-term/lump sum financial support makes sense with consult from a lawyer to keep it entirely copacetic. I realize some commenters find the financial part odd, but I just feel strongly about extending appropriate generosity in this transition since we have the means to do so. We also agreed to hold off on any child planning until sufficient time and counseling takes place. Also, I just want to address the comments on stay-at-home single mum aspect in defense of Biomom. I only mentioned that part to say how entirely devoted she was to her son. She was the primary physical caregiver, and yes, the child support order was enough that it allowed her the option to stay home full-time and live comfortable but not extravagantly. Is it the same decision that I would make as a career-minded person? No. But that was her prerogative, and I do respect that. I really don't know much about Biomom as a person, but what I do know is that she was raising a kind, funny, and smart boy who was loved and cared for, and that was what ultimately mattered. To say that there's a lot still up in the air emotionally is an understatement. My husband and I are saying the right things to each other now. Who knows what it will end up being in practice, but I'm hopeful at this point that my husband and I will be able to move forward together. Update 2. I received many very kind, compassionate, helpful comments and PMs from my original posts and thought that it would be easiest to update here for those that asked because it's a wild development. So I found out that my husband did not tell me the truth about Biomom's request. The truth being that he and Biomom had frozen embryos when they were together from years ago and she was planning to use those. I obviously had no idea that they had done this, and likely would have never known, if not for the fact that Biomom did have a successful implantation and is now in her first trimester. So my husband was forced to come clean. The distress that I feel about everything that has happened in the past 4 months is beyond words. So that's it. That's the update. I don't know what to do regarding so many things about this. At least I have a good therapist. In the comments, so he agreed to let her use the frozen embryos without your knowledge and is only letting you know now that the implantation is successful? I can't even imagine how you're feeling right now. But what about you? Were you guys still actively trying for a baby? OP says, yes. Now I'm questioning a lot about what he relayed to me regarding his past and general communication with Biomom. It seems like that they maybe always had some kind of understanding that she could utilize the embryos when she wanted, regardless of my stepson's passing. I even think that, weirdly, she thought that I was aware of this or something. But yeah, we stopped trying after my stepson's passing. Of course, I can't imagine also being pregnant at this time, so I know that's for the best. But yeah, I honestly feel really embarrassed to be involved in this like some kind of a third wheel. I'm mad, and I'm really, really sad. And sad for their future child. Oh gosh, I'm really sorry to hear that. I was hoping that it was done without his knowledge. I understand that Biomom and your partner are grieving, but this is a big lifetime decision that your partner excluded you on. You went into the relationship knowing about your stepson, and that was your choice to accept, but in this situation, it seems that you have been refused that. What does this decision mean for you and your husband? What does he have to say? OP replies, he just said that he didn't expect to meet someone like me and didn't want to lose me, so he basically compartmentalized things and hoped for the best. It all kinds of feels like variations of lies now, though. I wish more than anything that all of this could have come to light without my stepson's passing being the catalyst, that no one is anywhere close to accepting the grief of that at this point. I plan to let my husband and Biomom move on with that without me, though. How do they think that he was going to get away with this? I get that your husband and his ex are grieving, but this is basically a screw you to your marriage. He lied to you. Is he now going to go to all the antenatal classes, attend the birth, and have 50% custody? You signed up for it the first time around, but this is an entirely different scenario. Has he now decided to put starting your own family on the back burner because he can't cope with 2 babies at once? I'm so indignant on your behalf, and honestly thought that you had it sorted in your first update. The only way I think you could salvage your relationship at this point is if he signs the rights away as a sperm donor and is not on the baby's birth certificate. And OP replies, I'm mortified at how hopeful my previous post reads. I feel quite set on filing for divorce as soon as I can get myself out of bed. I'm not fit to be a stepmom or a wife anymore. OP, I hate to say this, but I don't feel that is the truth. The timeline is super tight for everything that she'd have to do for transfer. Plus, I don't think that it would be ethical for a doctor to implant so soon after the death of their child without clearance from a psychologist. There's a chance that they ended up sleeping together during their grief and she conceived then. The embryos would just make a more convenient excuse, and he would probably see that as less of a betrayal. I'm sorry you're going through this. This isn't what you signed up for when you got married. If you stay, his betrayal, even if it's just the secrets and lies, will always be right in your face. I hope for your sake and your mental health that you remove yourself from this situation. That poor child is always going to be in the shadow of the one that died because their parents didn't heal properly before conceiving them. Good luck, OP. Many healing vibes being sent your way. Fucking wild. I agree with the last commenter, that seems way more likely than the frozen embryos. Agreed with commenter 4. It's possible that it could be done this quickly, but still highly unlikely. Yes, highly unlikely. You have to go through all sorts of hormone therapy to prep for it, exams, etc. And on the balance of probabilities, I'm going to say almost definitely didn't happen through the embryo. Good that you're leaving, OP, because He definitely was cheating on you, if not physically at first. It definitely started as emotional cheating because of the enmeshment that he had with Biomom. Understandably so, but he allowed it to go way further than was necessary and comfortable and acceptable. It does not surprise me that she is pregnant so soon because he refused to see the light and he chose to lie to you instead. I would put money on the fact that he just straight up has been sleeping with her repeatedly to the point of trying to get her pregnant, probably not long after the son died. I can't imagine what the DMs looked like between them. That would have been a goddamn trip to read that. To them being like, we will rebuild. Rome has fallen. We can start again. Oh, brother, this and the freakiness from the brother-in-law on that second story, this has been an episode for the ages. Jesus Christ. What is wrong with people? Can people just be normal? That's all I want to say. That's my piece. You're welcome to say no, Marky. Actually, we live in 2025 now. This is the new normal. You're a weirdo freak for disagreeing with me, but hey, that's my opinion. A freak opinion. And I'm gonna leave it at that. Thanks for the story, OP, and thank you for the updates. Get the hell out of there. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for you today. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.